Hello everyone and welcome to another video. I'm Simply G and today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read for this week. Not a huge amount, which has seemed to be the case last couple weeks. Sorry, apologies for those who have been wanting more from me, but I can only read so much and I'm not sure how much I'll be able to read in the future either once my full-time work schedule starts. But I did read both manga and novels and a light novel this week. Hey Aisha, welcome to the stream. Thanks for popping in. So like per usual, I'm going to start with the novels just because I know that it's probably better to get them out of the way and then I can talk more in depth about the manga. But unfortunately, there's only one manga series I have to talk about this week. But anyway, so the first thing, the novel that I read this week was Terry Pratchett's The Fifth Elephant, which is one, shock, surprise, G reading a Discworld book. This is, I think, book 29 in the overall series. This follows Commander Sam Vimes as he is traveling to Uberwald as an ambassador for an Ankh-Morpork. So he is going as a diplomat to represent the city, and so currently the relationship between Ankh-Morpork and Uberwald isn't that great. He's hoping to reestablish that, whilst also there's a lot of uncertainty in Uberwald, their personal politics. So in this other country, it's sort of seen as probably more of like the European continent, and that is where majority of dwarves, trolls, vampires, and werewolves come from. That's where they live and born, and where most of them stay because that's their ancestral home, as it were. So there's been a lot of political issues with the dwarven society in this particular book. The new Low King has just been, or is about to be appointed, Rhys Reeson, who is a character that shows up in later books quite a bit. And so whilst there's all of this civil unrest within dwarf society, also a very famous monument, or not monument, that's not the right word. Very famous item has, or at least the fake of it, was stolen from the Dwarven Museum, or the Museum of Dwarven military bread. Is that what it's called? I don't remember. It's their combat bread that they have, but it's the replica of the Scone of Stone, which kind of lends itself to the larger issues in Uberwald and the things that are going on. Plus, also our werewolf police officer, Angua, has kind of gone missing. She leaves without any real explanation, and so the captain, aka the second in command, now that Commander Sam Vimes is away, having a vacation, as it were, as this diplomatic job that he's been put on, has decided to go after Angua. If you're not familiar with the series, he's a human with perhaps ties to the human royal bloodline, but he was abandoned at birth, raised by dwarves, so he regards himself as a dwarf. And he not quite yet, but thank you for asking. I start on this coming Tuesday, so I'm both excited and nervous, but I think that's part and parcel with starting a new job. I have been well though, and this last week or so much to do to prepare for work as well. So I have I'm ready. I'm kitted out. Certainly not going unprepared, and I'm very lucky for that. But yes, thank you for that inquiry. But yeah, so Captain Carrot has gone after Angua because not only are they both within City Watch and both regarded as friends, but they have been dating for a long time, and so it brings him into learning more about her and werewolf culture and her very rocky relationship with her family. So yeah, I mean, what can I say about a Pratchett book that I haven't said already? It's very, very good, very funny. I do like the City Watch characters. I think, oh my goodness, after Sergeant Colin is put in charge, it's interesting to see the difference in not only how the city sees the City Watch, but how, or the people of Ankh-Morpork sees the City Watch, but how the rest of the Watch sees Vimes and his position of leadership when he's not in that position of leadership. Also, of course, there is the ever-present Sybil, his wife, Vimes' wife, who has some news that she's wanting to share, but we don't. I mean, if you've read later books, you know what it is, but Vimes is quite distracted over the course of the series. But the reason it's called The Fifth Elephant is because, as I've mentioned before in Discworld, the whole name comes from the world, the universe, or the planet that they exist on is a disc, right, that sits on the backs of 4 elephants, which stand atop the back of a giant celestial turtle that is swimming through the seas of the universe. And so there is belief that there used to be 5 elephants. And so one of those elephants got knocked off and got caught in orbit and then crashed into the Discworld prior to human existence, or I guess not just human existence, but prior to life on the Discworld. And that is why there are such vast mines of elements, gold, copper, fat, in Uberwald, and that's part of the history or the legends of that area. It's really good. I mean, yeah, I talk about Discworld all the time. I don't know if I need to convince people, but it's very good. It's one of the middle books of this particular storyline or these particular characters. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as your first Discworld book to get into, but it shows off pretty well all of these different characters, all of their relationships, and pretty clearly shows the different political clashes within the whole larger world. Heron. Okay, I didn't know that Horimiya was. I'm really not up to date with anime right now. I don't think I've followed a series streaming for best part of a year as it came out, I should say, but I will probably watch the Horimiya premiere tomorrow because I love that series and I hope they do it well. The trailers for it have looked great, so I fingers crossed they do it justice. And for those who haven't read Horimiya, the manga, it's obviously a rom-com, but it is so funny, it is so good, and Hori and Miyamura are both great characters. Wonderful to see their relationship. Definitely recommend it. I don't know if this anime will be very good, but the manga is hilarious. Sometimes I still just think of jokes from that series and it makes me laugh. Like Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun, all of a sudden I'll just remember a joke from there and I will start giggling. And the great thing, with Nozaki-kun, is that the supporting cast is really wonderful to follow as well. I think there's a real great cast of teams in that series. I'm excited. I'm excited. I don't know when I will actually watch it. Probably tomorrow. I don't have anything to do tomorrow, so that might be a good. I might watch that before I watch any more of March Comes in Like a Lion, because I'm halfway through the first season of that, and I enjoy it very much. And so I need to get to the second half of that, because I have the discs. They've been sitting on my shelf for months, and I've been meaning to watch it forever. And for those who haven't been or didn't see on my Twitter, that this year my resolution in regards to my hobbies is to watch one of my anime physical backlog titles per month throughout the year, so 12 titles in all. And March Comes in Like a Lion was voted to be my first choice, which I'm very happy about, because I was wanting to watch it, obviously, and I really like Chika Umino's stuff. Even already, like, my heart is hurting for that series, and it's not even that far into it. There's certain things that I feel are going to happen. If they do, I'm going to be upset. I really hope that one day we get the actual manga. There's quite a few volumes out in Japanese, but I don't know. We have Chika Umino's other larger popular title, Honey and Clover, which is shorter than March Comes in Like a Lion right now, but I don't know. Maybe I feel like there's an audience there. People do like the series, and the anime is on Netflix, correct? I'm pretty sure it is. Most Aniplex titles are. So I feel like a lot of people are aware of the series. And, you know, drama series, emotional drama series are Umino's bread and butter. So I really hope we do see the manga one day. Fingers crossed. But regardless, the anime is very good. The director is Shinbo, so of Madoka and like Monogatari fame, has a very distinctive style. A lot of head tilting and like hyperfixation on like little mundane things within the scene, and very harsh cuts between stuff. And so I went into it knowing that, and when I first watched the first episode many, many, many years ago, back when it first came out, that was something that really like twigged me as to like, I don't know how well this director is suited for Umino's storytelling style. And there is parts where I'm like, I'm not sure if the comedy drama balance is as effective with Shinbo's style of directing, but regardless, it's still a very beautiful show. I do really think that there's a lot of love put into it. When you compare it to something like Honey and Clover, where a lot of the cat jokes and like some of the side jokes in Honey and Clover, when the characters are like making snide remarks, or there's like little off-the-cuff jokes in the background, they stay in the background and the focus stays on like the actual scene. Whereas with March Comes in Like a Lion, Shinbo kind of cuts between all of those different things. So the cats will be at the forefront, and then the actual point of the thing will be at the forefront, and then it'll cut between another joke between these two characters, and then and it just it's something that maybe I'll get more used to, but it's a directorial style that is, I mean, if you've seen one Shinbo show, you've seen all of them. Is kind of how I see it. And it's not to say that he doesn't have a good directorial style, because I really like the Monogatari stuff. Madoka was very memorable. People love it. It's regarded very highly. I like it a lot. It's not my favorite series of his. Hello, welcome to the stream, Manga BD. But it's not. I don't know if March was well suited for his stuff, because Monogatari works because it's just dialogue, never-ending dialogue, right? So it's fine if you cut between things to focus on, and there's a lot going on visually, because otherwise you're just sitting, watching two people sitting, talking to each other, and it's a really static shot, and it can be really boring. So there's a healthy balance there, I think. But anyway, that's just me ranting a little bit about the show that I've been watching. But that's not to say that's bad. I do really like it, and I know that I'm going to cry even more watching it. But the next thing that I read was my light novel. Well, it was actually the first thing that I read this week. But light novel, most recent volume of Bakuno, volume 15. Yes, 15, which is 1710 Crack Flag, by Ryogo Narita. So this is obviously a book set during the 18th century period. It actually covers like a couple years. So it starts off in 1707, where Maeza is introduced to an alchemist who has kind of achieved immortality, and this is prior to the later shipbride that would grant a whole bunch of alchemists immortality in this series. And it's also several years after the Masks, the Masks incident, the serial killer incident in this small Italian town, of which these three characters, whom fans may be familiar with, anime fans, I should say, may be familiar with. We have Huey, we have Elmer, so those two are in the show, and then Monica, who is, and it's about them, and how then there's also a playwright who kind of gets caught up in all of this stuff, and then Huey's relationship with these other two, and Monica's position, and obviously Elmer trying to make everybody just smile like the crazy person that he is. And it's good. It ends in not an unexpected way, because we know that certain characters exist in Bakuno now in the 1930s and 2000s that are just running around, and certain characters don't. Right, so it's not really a surprise when certain things happen. But it is interesting. This book is really interesting in seeing how Huey came from the 1705 story to his 1930s/2000s self, his kind of really drastic change in how he sees humanity, and also his weird disconnect both then and now with other people. Aisha, I am also looking forward to when you start watching Bakuno. I know you will like it. I know you will like it. And the novels, like most light novels, are not like brilliant literature, right? They weren't written to be brilliant literature, but they're always fun. They're always a good time. Well, I mean, this one is rough. I'm going to say that. We learn, as I said, we already know both Huey and Elmer's background from the last 1700s book. But here we learn more about Monica, and it's rough. It's pretty rough, and it's compelling. It's interesting. It makes you really appreciate how she is as a character now. And I'm trying to find a picture that isn't too spoilery in here for you. But it's really good. It's really good. I love this series a whole lot because see, that's a good attitude. If you're enjoying yourself, who cares? Who cares what actual, like, I don't know, artistic value the series carries when you can just be enjoying yourself, having a great time. Also, we have Ches is here for May. Who else is in here? Renee. Once you get to this point in Baccano, there's like 4 million characters, and surprisingly, you can remember most, if not all of them. They do have very distinct distinct personalities. I think that this is a good picture. I like it. I also think Itsumi Kaname, is that who the illustrator? Yeah, Katsumi Inami. Their art has really developed a lot over the course of the series. But yeah, okay. So 2 books ago, volume 13, we discovered like who the actual big bad guy of Baccano is, and they didn't show up much in the subsequent novel, volume 14, but oh boy, do they show up in this. And so it, again, gives you interesting perspective or new perspective on the whole thing, on everything that's happened, and why certain choices were made. Man, I'm interested in seeing how certain characters react when they find out about other certain characters being around. I'm just going to put it that way. But yeah, oh boy. Yeah. So Baccano is great. I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite light novels coming out right now. I don't follow like every single, obviously, there's no way you can follow every single light novel that there is. It's physically impossible. And I don't follow that many light novel series, but Baccano, especially with the stuff that I read physically or collect physically, is one that I would recommend. Baccano, Ascendance of a Bookworm, and what else is ongoing? I can't remember. I don't think I'm reading anything else ongoing that I'm buying, like physically. I follow a bunch of stuff on J Novel Club, but they haven't made the transition to print yet, if they ever will. Hello, Wonder. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for popping in. But yeah, Baccano was really good, and these books, these like 1700s books, are pretty self-contained, and again, they're interesting insight to these particular characters who are a little bit more mysterious, a little bit more abstract in the later storylines, or when they're first introduced, because obviously those storylines get introduced before these storylines do. Anyway, so those were the novels that I read. Well, novel and light novel that I read. I only read one other thing. I've just been lax. I've been really lax with my reading the last couple weeks, as I said. I just haven't had the time. I've been doing other things. And I talked about it last week. I said that I'd be reading it for this week. I stuck to that, at least. I read this pretty much the next day, and that is volumes 21 and 22 of Norigami. Okay, so yeah, I love this series. It made me yell. A whole bunch. So I said this last time, but Norigami is about Yato, this character here, who is a stray god. He is trying to gain notoriety and get his own shrine and become like a famous and popular god through doing odd jobs for people for 5 yen. And one day, a teenage girl called Hiyori sees him somehow, because he's a god, like he's literally a god, a kami, right, a Japanese god, who aren't really supposed to be seen if they don't want to be seen by mortals, by humans. So she sees him, like they pass each other on the street or something. And yay, Norigami! I love the positivity. I'm glad people love the series as much as I do. But she thinks he's about to be hit by a bus, and she tries to push him out of the way. And when she does so, her I think she gets hit by the bus, and her soul slips out. And she thinks she's fine, but then she realizes her body is like on the ground, and she's just in like ghost form. Anyway, they become friends, and she quickly becomes one of the few people, well, the only human to really know about this gods. And Aisha, one day I will convince you to read all of my favorite series. Also, it's not that long. It's 22 volumes. It's ongoing, but it's not that long, and it doesn't feel like it'll go on that much longer. And let's be fair. So, yay! I am really happy that people love this series, because it deserves all of the love. Highly recommend the anime as well. Might be a better way to get into it, but the manga is fantastic. So there is Yato. There is his Shinki? Shinki? I think that's what it's called. And called Yukine, who is, well, not on this cover. He's on this cover. There. Wings. Oh my gosh, focus. There he is. He doesn't normally, well, I mean, his face looks like that, but this is a normal position for him to be in. But he normally turns into a sword. He's like his weapon. And together they've done a lot of stuff. Yato is not highly regarded by the gods. He knows a lot of the very well-known gods, but they don't like him so much. But over the course of the series, he does actually forge quite close relationships with very well-known kami, Bishamonten being like one. Her arc is still ongoing, kind of, and is very, very crucial to Yato. They have a very interesting relationship that's obviously spanned centuries. Is her name Kofuku? The Kofuku Bimbogami, which is like the poor god, she's really the only friend that Yato has. Obviously, she's not a god you necessarily want to have around, but she's lovely. I love her. And Ebisu is the other major god. Well, I mean, there's some others, but Ebisu, he also had an arc, which is kind of finished, kind of ongoing as well. Second season of Norigami that covers those two arcs, those characters. You need to watch it. That's when the series really gets good, and it was already good. But now, currently, so we've discovered over the course of the series that this character, Brunette here, is the bad guy. He is the creator, but he also has this relationship, this past, very complicated relationship with Yato. And so Yato is trying to get rid of this bad guy, this creator, because he's causing problems for the gods. And so in order to do that, he has partnered up with a different Shinki, not his regular one, which causes a lot of emotional turmoil for poor Yukine. So that's what these books have been about. This has been about Yukine questioning his existence, which is not a good thing. for Shinki to do, because so what they are, Shinki are like, I guess human souls who have died, and then the gods take them in as, I guess they're not followers, but they're supporters, they're partners. As I said, they kind of become items for use of the god. And normally that's weapons, sometimes it's other stuff, transport, whatever. But so they used to be human, but if they recall that, if they try to contemplate about that, then that causes a lot of issues. And unfortunately, that's what's happening with Yukine right now, which has meant that he's kind of become ostracized from all of the people that would have been supporting him right now. Also, look at this artwork. Like, I love it so much. This series is really funny. The action is phenomenal. It's also really like quite creepy. We know that I love yokai stories, supernatural stuff. Ebisu's storyline is just, it makes me cry. Really, all of Norigami makes me cry. I'm not going to open up many more of this, because this one, if you're not up to date with Norigami, this one may spoil some things, so I'm not going to do that. But dang it, if this isn't a amazing series. It's also, as I said, really funny. Yato is a goofball, but like a very sincere goofball. All of the supporting characters, they have really great qualities, and you can understand like how they're gods. They do have some of them have a human side to them, right? Because they used to be human. And then others have always been gods, and so there's this fickleness to them. They have this disconnect from humanity, which is important for them to have. But when seen from a human perspective, seems very, unfair, very fickle, as gods tend to be. So, I'm really looking forward to volume 23. I don't know when we're getting it, because oh my god, this one ends on such a big cliffhanger. I yelled. Let's just put it that way. These poor characters. I also really like how the idea of how gods don't feel the importance of, and it's something that's come up prior to this, but gods can't die, right? The only way a god can die is if everyone stops believing in them, or if they have no one who has any sort of belief in them, which for major gods means that they will never die, because they're so ingrained into folklore, into tradition, that there's no way, like Ebisu's never gonna die, because he's literally like the god of wealth and money and economy. And as long as Japan exists as a country with an economy and wealth and want for wealth, then he will just always exist. And because of that, the way that Ebisu has always treated his immortality, or not really cared about his life, compared to Yato, who has no believers and doesn't have that lifeline, doesn't have the guarantee that if he dies, he's going to wake up. It's really good. I said this before, it's a phenomenal series. I think a lot of people fell in love with it through the anime, and as they should, the anime is really great. Highly recommend it. But then at some point, the series went on hiatus. We caught up with it in English, and then it was years and years between volumes. I think it was 16 and 17 or something, 17 and 18. And now we're back on track. Like, they haven't been on hiatus since, but I think in that period of hiatus, people kind of lost interest, and and stopped caring. Aisha, 22 volumes. I mean, it's more than a lot of series, but it's also way less than a lot of other series. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue that it's not a lot of volumes, especially as I know we've been really bad influences on you recently, and you have been reading stuff like Yona of the Dawn and just stuff that's long and ongoing, and you understand, like, it's really good, and so no matter how long it is, you just keep buying it. But we, like, long-time watchers know that I obviously try to only keep series that I really love in the collection. I buy physically the books that like are my absolute favorite, and I reread a lot. And typically my favorite stuff, I'm not one who loves a series to go on forever and ever without any sort of resolution. See, and that's the problem. We knew you'd love Yona, and everyone loves Yona. Yona's so good. It could go on for 90 volumes and it would still be good. That's the problem, is that it's too good. You don't want it to go on that long, except for you do, because you never want it to end. And Norigami isn't that for me. But at 22 volumes, it's even more brilliant than it was at like 10 volumes. And I feel like every series has a natural course of its life. And some series get cut short, others far outlive that natural course of their life, as we typically see. I mean, really the biggest examples of this come from Weekly Shonen Jump. I don't know anyone who doesn't have like immediately a Shonen Jump series that comes to their mind when they think of a series that has outworn its welcome. And I'm not even talking about like the obvious things like Bleach and Naruto, but even, and I mean, I personally hate this series on a lot of levels, but Bakuman, even at 20 volumes, is far too long for what it needed to be. As I said, I hate that series for a lot of different reasons, but even when reading it, there's such long periods of time in the middle of it, especially towards the ending, where it was dragging its feet to try and do other things and have new arcs and whatever, because it was popular. And obviously the editors were like, we want you to keep writing this, so keep writing this. Another example, well, and then there's other series that start really strong and then kind of don't really know where they're going and end kind of abruptly. They try to hasten up an ending. Unfortunately, Demon Slayer is within that, and I like Demon Slayer a lot. I thought it was very good. I thought it was quite effective at everything that it was doing. Another example of this is what's that one? Promised Neverland. Like that, I think everyone agrees that the first arc is really good, and then it's like, okay, good, what's going on? Okay, that's really interesting, and then it just, at some point, everybody stopped caring, and then it ended. Okay, well, that wraps that up. We're gonna just like squish everything into a bowl and throw it out into the world, and that's the conclusion. Whereas then there's other series where you can tell that they had an ending point in mind from the starting point. And typically these are shorter series. These are series that have a concise, well edited, well written, tight story. And that's not to say that long series aren't good. Like, as long as the creator knows what they're doing and where they want to take things, and also as long as a creator knows like that they can have fun and they they can change tack and then seamlessly integrate that into the story they were already telling. There's a lot of different ways that this can happen. It's not, there's not one set correct way to create a good piece of media, right? But I would, and this isn't a Shonen Jump title, but I would argue that something like Full Metal Alchemist, where you can see shadows of the finale, shadows of what is important at the end of the series in the very first pages of the first chapter, is much more effective in telling a cohesive story and having overarching themes and consistent character growth and characters actually all contributing to the story versus a series that starts with a cool idea, gets super popular, the creator has, it gets to the end of their cool idea, and then because it's so popular, it just has to keep going and going and going and going and going and going, and then nobody knows what's going on and nobody likes it anymore, and then it just kind of crashes and burns. Which does happen a lot, unfortunately. And so, I think a good rule of thumb, and obviously, I typically, my favorite series are stuff between 5 and 15, maybe 20 volumes long. I do have series that are longer than that, much longer than that. But those tend to be that. That's a sweet spot for most titles. Most titles don't need to be longer than 10 or 15 volumes, 20 at the most. And if you are longer than that, then it has to be consistent. And maybe that's because the scale of the story is much larger than can fit in that amount of books. I've read a lot of series that are a lot longer than that, and there's never been a point there that I haven't felt tired in those series that do get to 40, 50, or even longer amount of volumes. I'm just oh my gosh, this is so much. And the few series that don't do that are, I would regard, very special. And so I currently only have two series in my collection that are over 40 volumes and completed at just over 40 volumes, which is Skip Beat and Haikyuu. And then I have a couple that are between 30 and 40 that I do love, stuff Kakaishi, and maybe love is a strong word, but Black Butler I still really enjoy. And Hunter x Hunter, of course. But yeah, typically, and I think Tay put it very well, is once you get to that point of 10 volumes, it's either hooked you and you're ready to dedicate your life to it because you know that it's so good and you just want more and more and more, or you start to feel that this worn out, okay, how much longer is there in the series? Controversial opinion, I know, but honestly, there are certain genres that absolutely do not need to be over 10/12 volumes long. Namely, high school romance. When they get to 20 volumes, I don't know what do you even do at 20 volumes when you're dealing with high schoolers misunderstanding each other and it's frustrating. Right? And yeah, a lot of the slice of life stuff I don't think needs to ever be over 5, if not 10 volumes. There's just a lot of stuff that suits multiple volumes, long stuff. A lot of which I will never own because it's not really stuff that I'm interested in. And then there's a lot of stuff that is more poignant, more effective, more interesting, more shocking, more palatable, whatever you want to, however it is, just better. Better as a more concise product. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, as much as I love some series, right? I wouldn't want 20 volumes of it. As much as I love Sunny, for example, Sunny from Taiyo Matsumoto, that's 6 volumes. That's exactly how long it needed to be. Taiyo Matsumoto's stuff is phenomenal for multiple reasons, but his stories don't drag, and they are exactly the length that they need to be. 5 to 6 volumes is the longest his stuff has ever gotten, and that's really when there's a lot of plot going on, right? And all of his stuff is very plot heavy, but there's also a whimsical nature to it, and I feel like you can get caught up in that if it's just all of that all of the time. I'm glad people are agreeing. Good question. How long is Horimiya? I think it's currently at 14 volumes, which I mean is calling me out because I do love that series. But in saying that, I haven't picked up volume 13 and 14 since they've come out. I've been sitting on volume 12. I've read volume 12, but it's just kind of a lower priority for me because I love it. It's funny and it's effective because for that, Horimiya isn't really about Hori and Miyamura getting together. They're obviously the first part of it is. It's about their relationship and them getting together. But they start dating pretty quickly, and so the story is more so about their relationship after they're dating, or like whilst they're dating, not after they're dating. They haven't broken up, but whilst they're dating, which is a much more interesting, for me, is a much more interesting dynamic, right? And that's a little bit different than something like Kimi ni Toroke, where it takes them 10 volumes to get to a relationship, and then another 10 volumes to kiss, and then another 10 volumes before it's finished. And it's sweet and it's lovely, but oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and also the comedy, it's very focused on the comedy when it's not focused on the romance. Same with Monthly Girls Norosaki-kun. That has very little forward momentum in the romance department, but it's not so much about that. It's more so just hilarious about these weirdo kids hanging out and who are all friends, but then don't know certain things about each other. And there's and that one obviously is making fun of a lot of those shoujo tropes of misunderstandings and bad boy tropes and playboy tropes and what qualifies girls manga and all the other normal topics of shoujo manga. So yeah, but we're not talking about Monthly Girls Norosaki-kun. Horimiya, I think, is 14 volumes. To answer your question, yeah, I do think that volume 14's come out. Maybe. I know 13 has definitely come out. 14, maybe not. Maybe COVID screwed it up. But yeah, there's a little over a dozen volumes. It is good though. It's good, and dang if it's not a great relationship. Great relation. But yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop babbling because literally that's it. This is all I read. I mean, this and these oh my gosh, I need more hands. All of this. I say all. I mean, maybe this is norm. This is what we should expect from me. A couple volumes of manga and maybe a novel. Yeah. I can't wait for volume 23 of this series. I don't know when it's coming out because 22 just came out, and this is a monthly series, and so it's going to be at least 6 months, which is painful. I hate when there's big cliffhangers, especially with drama. This one just came out, so it's going to be another 4 to 6 months before we get. I don't remember how long their break there is between Baccano volumes, but I mean, it comes out quickly, but also not quickly enough, if you know what I mean. Yes, Skip Beat is another example of, like, it's super duper long, and as I said, that's one of the few series that is currently so I have 3 series currently over 40 volumes, or will be completed at over 40 volumes in my collection. I have Haikyuu, which ends at 45 volumes. I have Kazahikaru, which will end in 30 years in English at 44 volumes. And Skip Beat is currently 44 volumes as well, ongoing, and is not near. Well, I mean, it's kind of near the ending. I presume it's wrapping up. It's resolved a lot of stuff, but it's also quite, I don't know, there's a lot of development over the course of the series. It doesn't feel repetitive, which is what other longer series can feel, like tournament fighters and adventure shonen and sports series and shoujo. All of these things can feel very repetitive because it's just the same thing with just maybe we shuffle the characters around and do different stuff. Skip Beat, yes, there's a lot of obviously focus on Kyoko becoming a better actress or talento, whatever you want to call her, but it but it definitely, like, you see how much she's grown and how much the characters have changed around her, and so it doesn't feel like you take 1 step forward and 3 steps back every single time anything happens, which is more so the problem in other series. I want the, okay, considering it's, I know it's because it's a Shogakukan series that Viz is contractually obligated, I presume, and this has kind of been proven with other series that Viz puts out, but they're contractually obligated to finish the series. Even if it's not selling, even if it doesn't, like, get any numbers worth bragging about for sales, they have to finish it. Hayate the Combat Butler is another one of those series that they have to finish. I presume they have some other stuff. I would say probably Detective Conan or Case Closed or whatever it is in English, because that's at 70-something volumes, and it's not that that's not a popular and big series, but it's a popular and big series in Japan, right? I don't see people buying it, and I would presume it's in libraries and stuff. It's a great series for libraries because it's each chapter is pretty self-contained, or each volume is quite self-contained, so you don't necessarily have to read from the very beginning to current. But yeah, I'm appreciative that the monkey paw, like, wish means that we will at some point get the rest of Kazahikaru. But 1 volume a year is so many years. It's so many years until we're caught up. So for those who don't know, Kazahikaru is a historical fiction josei series about a young girl who calls herself Sei, who joins the Shinsengumi, who are kind of like the early police force before that had been established in Japan. I'm sure people are aware of what the Shinsengumi is, right? If you have watched anime, you've probably come across it. But so she joins the Shinsengumi right when it's first starting, in order to get revenge for the murder of her father and older brother, So she like Mulan pretends to be a boy and joins the Shinsengumi, and so she's trying to get revenge for the untimely death of her only family, and it is discovered that she's a girl by famous historical figure and Shinsengumi member and swordsman Okita Soji, who is a real life person. Not as much of like I don't know, teen heartthrob as his manga counterpart in Kazahikaru, but it's like very slow burn is the right word for it. Slow burn romance between those two, and also her trying to not get discovered by the rest of the group for being a girl, because she discovers after being with the Shinsengumi that she actually really likes it, that she wants to be here and wants to serve her country and whatever else, and also be with the man that she loves. And it's a good time. It's really, really good. But yeah, the release schedule, I think they licensed the series 2008, so initially we were getting volumes pretty quickly. 2008, 2010 maybe. So we have currently 28 volumes of 44. The series just ended last year or the year before. I can't remember because 2020 was 2,000 years long. But I think it ended in 2019. I think. So there's 44 volumes in all. So it's completed. But ever since probably about 2012, 2013, the pace of releases just slowed way down. So I don't know what volume we hit, but then rather than like one volume every 3 or 4 months, it was like one volume every 6 months and one volume every 8 months. And now it is literally like one volume every 12 months. And so if you do the math, we are currently at 28, waiting for volume 29. Maybe 29's come out. Regardless, we are in the late 20s, and we have until 44, so we have at least 15 volumes to go until the end. And we're at one volume a year. I will be in my late 30s, if not, no, I will be in my early 40s by that point. I just want a faster release schedule. Yeah, you're making me laugh. See, okay, at least with Kazahikaru, it's not in the Wandering Sun boat where it will be dropped because there's no sales. As I said, I think Shigakukan series have the contractual obligation to be finished regardless of sales, because that's how the contracts are drawn up for Viz for these series. But I mean, I also wish that I at 25 had I had the full Wandering Sun series, but alas, it was not to be. I'm just gonna have to live and love my 8 volumes of that series, and cross fingers that someday we will see Wandering Sun relicensed, because that series was ahead of its time. Aisha, don't even start with me. You won't be alive in 15 years. Yes, you absolutely. Oh my god, you act like you're 75. You're not. You're not even close to old. Jeez, you make me upset. You're just because you're in your 30s doesn't make you old. What does that say about me? I'm nearly there. I'm basically there. I was actually complaining that I'm like, man, one step closer to 30 this year. And it's not my birthday yet, but it's quite early in the year. I know you do. I know you do. Here's, but also I'm not. Yeah, I don't see that as an issue. I'm not afraid of 30 or past 30. Oh my goodness, you too in the comments. It's 30. Being over 30 is not old, and enjoying things, nerdy things over 30 is not weird, especially for like, because okay, I always see it as there's this part of me that I don't like to encourage that women saying like, oh, I'm 35 and like so old for this, and but like we know that women are already like so gatekeeped out of, that's not a word, but like we're so barred out of fan spaces that we don't create for ourselves already. Like we're already seen by society as not correct or not being appropriate, not good for women, especially over like 20, 25, to be into nerdy things. But then by the same token, men can be as vehemently in love with Star Wars at 45 as they were at 8 years old, and nobody has a problem with that. I just dislike the double standard, and I don't like to perpetuate that. And I know it's all jokes. I know it's all jokes, but it is something that obviously, you know, as a young woman, and as majority of my audience is women, we know like it can be hard being in nerdy spaces. This isn't, I'm not breaking some overwhelming truth that anyone isn't aware of, right? But the expectation of like what women should be doing at certain ages versus what men are allowed to get away with when it comes to hobbies. I mean, when it comes to life, but when it comes to hobbies as well, I just don't like to perpetuate that. And I think it's yeah, I aim for the stars. BL Metamorphosis, it'd be interesting. I mean, we already know that there's so many women in fandoms, or at least, you know, doing nerdy hobbies, not necessarily fandoms online and stuff, but fandom was started by women and should always be central to women's experiences and support women, especially those who are older. I mean, you look at fandom history and the whole thing with Star Trek and how that evolved from dedicated female fans, and how so many of the largest conventions and fan meetings and long-running zines and all of that were from female fans. But then, of course, things are only legitimized once guys get into it. And I'm just gonna stop talking about societal sexism. It's too late at night. It's too late at night for me to be getting into this. But I mean, again, these aren't topics that are new to the channel or new to anyone who's watching. And I don't know if I'm going to be like watching the new anime season at 65, right? I don't know if my Crunchyroll subscription is going to be up to date in 40-ish years, 38 years to be precise. But I will probably still have my disgustingly large physical collection of my nerd hobbies, and I will just watch them and be like, this is my thing, children, presumably adult children, go live your life, and I will I will read my comics and watch my cartoons, and I am your mother, so do not question me. But yeah, older people in fan spaces are absolutely legitimate and wonderful. I think that it's really lovely to see. I prefer having older fan friends as it is, because I don't want to deal with first of all, I'm not going to be dealing with teens anyway, but I current online culture around fandoms is just, I'm not going to deal with that. They're weird. They all take zero responsibility for their own experience online. They expect everyone else to spoon feed them. And I don't want to deal with that. When I was a stupid 16-year-old on the internet doing fan stuff and wanting to read things that weren't age appropriate and all that stuff, I just did that quietly and didn't make it everybody else's problem, and just went on and lived my life. And I feel like that's what we need more of now. But I'm sounding like the old person, like, oh, kids these days. But I do think there's, and I've spoken about this to friends before, in the community and online friends just generally, is that I'm not old, right? I'm in my late 20s, but I grew up with the idea that online space was not connected to your real life. So there's always a level of distance. And as much as I love you guys on here, and as much as I talk about hobbies and talk about the things that I enjoy and series and shows and whatever that are very near and dear to me, I don't have my real name connected to this channel. I don't want my life and my whole background story, family history online related to my dumb manga YouTube channel. Because that's like, this shouldn't be my life, right? It's just a part of my hobby experience. And again, as much as I love hanging out with you guys, and as many of wonderful friends as I've met through this hobby and through this channel and through Twitter and whatever else, there's a difference from the people who know me as Simply G versus the people who know me in real life through my schooling or through my work or through my other non-internet related hobbies. So but then you see all of these teenagers, and I mean, it's something that's always, it's not just teenagers, right? All of the current generation of influencers who've commodified themselves, who've made them the product. Perfect example, not a person that I follow, but the Paul brothers, Jake and Logan Paul, that's their name. That's their name, and their whole thing, vloggers, they show off their life. Not that that's what they do anymore, but the whole vlogging thing is what started it, right? And so they commodified their real life. They connected their real name, and things like Facebook having you have to have your real name. Well, I mean, they don't now, but when it started, you had to have your real name. YouTube, if you don't have a channel name, there was a period where your real name was attached to everything. Your real name is attached to everything. There's no online anonymity in certain spaces, especially with regards to social media. So it broke down that whole thing, and I grew up with you never tell people online anything about yourself because stranger danger, and there's predators online, and Chris Hansen to Catch a Predator, and you're gonna get abducted. You're gonna get abducted by a crazy person. This is the early 2000s. Computers are scary, and we don't understand the internet. But now these 15-year-olds are sending their nudes on Snapchat and like doing all crazy wild stuff. And like, I don't, that's one, illegal, but two, no, don't, why would you do that? I know you're a 15-year-old, but have a little bit of foresight, because online is forever. Do they just not teach that to children anymore? Maybe. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, obviously, when I'm in front of camera, I don't know how old I look, but I don't look that old. But I don't, like, I'm obviously not a teenager, right? So there's, and a lot of my friends are older. They have lives, partners, families, whatever. and so that aspect, like, once you become closer friends and you know that they're not weirdos and they're not gonna like dox you if you're gonna say that you dislike a fictional character that they don't like, or that they do like, I don't know, that's when you can privately become more comfortable with people and share more information about yourself. But tweeting all of your personal information online, it's not a good idea. Don't do that. Yeah. And that was the thing as well. Like, back in the day, we all had like one screen name that we went by, and that was just your name over like every social media. I did have MySpace, but I never, like, I went on it one time and then was like, nah, also I was too young for MySpace. So I shouldn't have been on there anyway. But I like pretty much immediately just abandoned it. I was not on a lot. I was one of the first people on Facebook in my year group. But, all of this stuff, like, prior to that, I had one screen name, and I still use it for certain areas. Not for the channel. It's pretty cringy. So I'm not going to tell you what it is, and I also don't need that paper trail. But it was one that I created at like 11 or 12 years old, and it's good for when I'm wanting to do stuff online that isn't me, like my actual real life, my name, my whole identity. I don't need my LinkedIn profile connected to it, right? But also I don't want this connected to it. I just want to be like some nobody on an anime forum or whatever. Then I use that one, and that's so I liked that part of the internet where you could have multiple personalities, and not so much like, oh, so you're sock puppeting yourself and be like, oh my gosh, you're the best. That's the other crazy thing. That was the early 2000s craziness. It still happens, but man, the wild west of the internet. I don't know. Things haven't changed that much, but also they have changed quite a bit. But yeah, it's interesting to see. Yeah, this is something that's come up a lot before. Even today, when we were playing vampires, we were talking about real names and versus our screen names, and we all talk to each other in video by our screen names because it's more familiar. But we all know each other's real names, and we've known for a while, except for one of the members. And I didn't discover, but some other people in the group discovered that today. So we all know each other's names, but we still don't call each other by our names. And that's fine, because we don't need to do that to pretend to be vampires and fail miserably at that. So, but I'm really off topic. Internet safety with G this week, I guess. Oh my goodness. I'd be interested in, I mean, yeah. Your voice doesn't really change from like, I don't know, 20, 18, 20. Depends on when you hit puberty and like when your voice changes and all that. To when you're very, very much older. 35, people treat 35 as if it's like you're one foot in the grave, grandma. Get off of the internet. What are you doing here? Don't you have laundry and taxes and banking to do? It's like, I don't. Oh my god. Oh. Anyway. You know what's worse is when you're actually like 35, but you sound like a 12-year-old. Because I have a friend that has that. And I was like, that gets kind of awkward. And then also I have friends who are like adults, legal adults, but then they still I still get asked for my ID every time I try to buy alcohol. And our limit here is 18. It's not even 21. So I'm like, I'm flattered, but also, do I look like an 18-year-old? I don't know. And do I look like I am just right out of high school? I hope not, because I looked terrible right out of high school. That wasn't a good time. I was not an attractive teenager. I just wasn't. So, not that I'm that attractive now, but I was a mess at 18 and younger. It was Thank goodness for getting older. That's all I gotta say. Yeah. But I'm gonna stop rambling about stuff that has nothing to do with anything. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I know for me it's late. I know it's a little bit odd hours for everyone all across the board. Oh, Tay, I will never mistake you as a 15-year-old. Not that I know what you look like, but I know that you're not 15. It's alright. It's alright. Wear a hat or something. Just lean into it. Be like, yes, I'm actually 3 children in a trench coat. That is my, See, then that's really a compliment. You're like, yes, I am a youthful child. Look how small and baby I am. I remember when I was in high school, people thought I was like 25. And then I hit 25 and people think I'm like 17. I'm like, that's not how that works. I don't look younger now than I did then, I don't think. I had way worse skin when I was actually 17 versus now, so I don't know. Maybe it's a testament to how much older our young people look today. Let's get philosophical. But I'm gonna go to bed. It's not that late, but it is quite late. And I do want to thank everyone for hanging out with me. I know there wasn't a huge amount to talk about. Well, I mean, we still talked for an hour and 20 minutes, but in terms of what I actually read, I don't know if any of what I said about anything helped people to be more informed about these titles, but they're all good, and I do think they're worth reading. I would say check out Norigami if you don't want to dive straight into the manga. Check the anime. Is it on Crunchyroll still? I don't know. Where did I watch that? Who knows? It's on Funimation. They have stuff. But it's both really good. And yeah, Discworld's wonderful as always. Bakuno's great. One of my favorites. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for all the well wishes. I hope this week is wonderful for everyone. I know that I will be anxious and stressed out with the moment that I walk into my new job on Tuesday, and just not know how to function. But I'll get over it. It's fine. I'm a fast learner, quick to adapt. But who knows whether or not I read anything this week. I think I'm just gonna come home and then like stress cry and then have a glass of wine and just go straight to bed for the whole week. So next Saturday I might just be like, yeah, all I did was stress cry and drink wine. So that may be the state of me, but I will try to eke in at least one volume of manga. So this isn't a totally useless live stream. And as for the future, as I said before, I don't know how consistent this will be in 2021, but I will try to stick to the schedule as best I can. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day, night, afternoon, whatever it may be, and a wonderful rest of your weekend. Bye. I will